Indy up here, so just, and she's printing it, and she's gonna bring it into this. No, we saw someone else. You can put outside. Yeah. Just Dan and Lisa. Okay. Barbara.
Check, testing 1, 2, 3.
Chief said he's on his way, but traffic is hot. So, and did you see that on here there are also listed things they're going to do? Now, that's the list of all our worldwide resources, which are like just not even about behavior, it's more about just how they handle it. Yes. Anything with an arrow, you say, the rest of it, except for here, you're gonna have to make up this stuff. But yes, you're gonna have to make that up. Not before the public speakers. So yeah. So you're going to go. You're going to start here. Give Metro TV everything that's going to. You're going to say Metro TV. And then you're going to start in seconds. And then you're going to introduce everyone and whatever the time is at the time. And you're going to look around the room, see if everyone else can introduce everybody. This is any other council member there, any other introduce the mayor and whoever else you want to. Okay. Thank you so much.
Good with that?
Yes, thank you. And then, yeah. Yes. Then you're going to do your opening statement. So then you just welcome to the hearing and then say whatever you want. That's your. No. You're going to. This is welcome to the public hearing. You're going to say whatever you want. When everyone's like after the chief speaks, everyone speaks. That's when you're going to go down here. This is just. This is all before the chief. I mean, before the people speak. This is whenever right before they start. And you're going to go all through those. Yeah, those are your rules that you definitely want. If you have anything about the form or anything, please, by all means, you add that to the list. Yeah, so add that to the list, yeah. Yeah, I would, and I would state it at the very end. So state, whatever you say, you want to state it. Yeah. And then, and we get the yeah, they were.
That way, and there's one interest, one exit. You know what I'm saying? And that way, don't miss it.
Mayor will be here. Debbie Kaplan, the chief. How are you?
How's it going? You doing the timing and all that?
So I have just finished timing for the speaker. And you can sit here if you like, wherever you want to. Maybe on the other side of Councilman Syme and so comfortable. And we have one microphone, so. She is. We have now. That doesn't start. Yeah. So we just to give her a tip because we have a list of how we do our meetings, but we're not expecting it, right? So she said that if there's any interruptions or whatever, she just add it. If you have any suggestions for her to say, please write it on the script. She got these papers. Just add it to the paper. Councilwoman. If you. Oh wait. Let me do that.
Hey, Tammy, good to see you. How's it going? I told Marcus to hold steel. Visual This is just a reminder that if you haven't signed in, there are 2 sign-ins, one for being here and then one if you want to speak. So if you want to speak and you haven't signed in already, please do that now. You can find them in the back. You can't hear me? Great. Have you potted me up? Okay, this is a lot louder. Thank you. All right, I'm going to repeat. There are 2 sign-in sheets. If you haven't already signed in to speak, okay, there's 2. One when you walk in, and a second one to actually speak at this meeting. If you want to speak, go back outside. There'll be a sign-in sheet table at the back. Thank you. This is also a reminder, if you need childcare during this meeting, we have Play Cousins in the back room that you entered in through the door right there. Thank you.
Ben.
We ask that you please turn all phones on silent during the meeting. Thank you.
Yeah. We waiting on Councilman, we're waiting on the chief. He speaks first. Councilman Arthur, can you please join us? Thank you. We'll get started in just a second.
Buenas tardes. ¿Alguna persona necesita intérprete inglés-español? Levante la mano. ¿Inglés-español alguna persona?
Metro TV, 30 seconds, please.
Buenas tardes. ¿Alguna persona necesita intérprete inglés-español, español-inglés?
So we're gonna let the interpreter. Nobody's here for interpreter.
So we're gonna give about 5 more minutes for anyone that needs. Okay. What time is it? Good evening and welcome. The time is 5:14 p.m. This is a special meeting of the Public Safety Committee. I am your chair, Tammy Hawkins. Today I'm joined by the following members: my vice chair, Dan Symes, committee member Dr. Barbara Shanklin, committee member Shamika Parrish Wright. Excused absence is committee member Mulvihill. Excused absences, committee member Scott Reed. Excused absence, committee member Stuart Benson. We're also joined by President Marcus Winkler. We are joined by Democrat Caucus Chair Dr. Paula McCraney and Councilman Ja'Cory Arthur. Is there any other members of the council present? Okay. We're going to introduce from the administration, David Kaplan and Chief Humphrey. Before we get started, please note the pending legislation item on the agenda would not be heard tonight. So moving forward, welcome to the public. No, we're going to give the chief an opportunity to go up and introduce the proposed ordinance from the mayor's office. So he's going to go through this proposed ordinance. And if you don't have a copy of it, you can go back there in the back, and we printed up several copies of the ordinance for you to be able to look over. So if you don't have a copy of the ordinance, just raise your hand and we'll have someone bring you a copy of it. Okay, so I want to be clear. This ordinance was written by the mayor's office. And the reason for today's meeting is because we want to hear what the community has to say. That's vital. That's who we represent. Chief Humphrey is going to introduce this. If you have any concerns or if you want to jot some things down, respectfully, we're going to let him get through this, and then we'll go into comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Hawkins, and I appreciate all the council members being here today. And I appreciate all of you from the public being here. I think this is a very important topic from the standpoint of we are talking about crime strategies and how we address violent crime in the community. And I think that's very important that all the communities involved in that. And so before we actually talk about the proposed amendments to the ordinance, I want to talk about why this even came up as a topic of conversation in the first place. Obviously, in the last couple of years, our level of violent crime in the community has been at unprecedented levels. And what we are not willing to accept is the status quo. So right now, as of today, we are looking at 131 homicides. Let me put that in perspective for you. Prior to 2020, our record number of homicides was 117. We have not had below 150 homicides in this community in the last 4 years. When you look at it from a race perspective, 71% of our homicides are Black people. This is absolutely a social justice and a racial justice issue. We cannot continue to sit back and accept the status quo that has become in the last few years. That being said, we are very open to exploring different ideas for how to combat that. We know that there are social drivers of violent crime that take long-term approaches. We have to look at those. We have to look at those as a community. We have to look at those as a council. We have to look at those as metro government. And we have to be willing to address those. Those are some of the things that we talked about was it last night or the night before? That there are some things that enforcement will never be able to combat. Those things have to be addressed. When we're talking about differences in education, housing, healthcare, those are things that have nothing to do with law enforcement, but ultimately are drivers of violent crime. But when we're talking about violent crime in and of itself, there has to be an interruption in violent crime. And so we are looking at any tool possible to combat violent crime. Understanding that with every discretionary tool that's available to the police, there is a chance of misuse or overuse. And so we want to make sure that we have that conversation about how to ensure that that does not happen. So we want to make sure that we do this the right way. We do this in collaboration with the community, with the council, and this does not become a source of pain and anger and frustration for the community. However, is a tool to be able to be used to interrupt that violent crime that is hitting our community right now. And I also want to give you another statistic, understanding that gun violence being studied in this country has been a source of contention, particularly at the federal level. There's been a lot of push for the CDC to be able to look at gun crime as a health issue. And I will tell you right now, gun crime is a health issue. It is a health emergency in this country. That being said, it is not looked at as such at the federal level, but what the CDC has looked at is causes of death. And I want to give you some statistics and background based on racial disparities in causes of death for different age groups. So of all deaths of Black males between 15 and 19, 54% of those Black males that die between 15 and 19 are killed by homicide. For white males of the same age group, it's 5%. Let me explain that again. For all Black males between 15 and 19 that die at that age group, 54% of them are killed by homicide, and only 5% for white males. That is not okay. For Black males who die between the ages of 20 and 24, it's 46%. For white males, that's 4%. These statistics are absolutely crazy. While I am very, very understanding and open to the concerns of over-policing, mis-policing, wrongdoing by police, we're not going to accept the status quo. So I'm very open to the conversation of how do we combat this violent crime and what tools can we use in order to do that? And then how do we make sure that we have proper guardrails to make sure that we do it the right way? And I will turn it over to Deputy Mayor Kaplan, Mayor's General Counsel, to go through some of the proposed changes to the ordinance to make sure that we have some of those guardrails in place when it comes to this particular tool.
Buenas tardes. ¿Alguna persona que necesita intérprete inglés-español, español-inglés? Levante la mano, por favor.
You okay? All right. Thank you, Chief Humphrey. As the chief mentioned, I'm the mayor's chief of staff and general counsel. So one of the things that I do is help with legal advice and help with legislation. As the chief mentioned, there were some conversations between the mayor and him and other senior staff, as well as with Councilwoman Tammy Hawkins and others about the public safety challenges that we face in the community, and could the mask ordinance be a tool that law enforcement could use to try to promote public safety and save lives. We also realized from the get-go, based on feedback that we were getting immediately from public health folks, from advocates for public health and for constitutional rights, that we would need to take into serious account the public health challenges that we also have in the community. And so the mask ordinance amendments that I'm going to just summarize very quickly are trying to balance the public safety objectives that the chief just described without sacrificing public health or in any way inhibiting people for wearing masks for public health purposes and other valid reasons. And so we hope to get more feedback from y'all and the community to make sure that this balance is struck the right way. So just so everyone understands this, back in 1983, so over 40 years ago, was when this ordinance was enacted. We have a staff member who couldn't be here tonight, or she would be doing the speaking. Her name is Shandani Kemper. She goes by Shan. She couldn't be here tonight because she's with her family for a wedding where she's a bridesmaid. But she did some research, and we were able to identify the genesis of the ordinance, which actually went back to when KKK marches were prevalent at that time. And as you all know, wearing a mask and a hood was one of the things that they would do to terrorize people as well as conceal their identities. And so you could not prevent the marches because we're in America, that's a constitutional right. But the council at that time, the Board of Aldermen, decided to prohibit the wearing of the masks as a way to try to address that problem at that time. Now, we inherited that ordinance. It continues on to the present. To my knowledge, it has not been amended since 1983. It was not enforced during COVID, during the height of the COVID pandemic, because pretty much everybody was wearing masks. And in fact, the governor had issued executive orders on that subject matter that everybody had to follow. And so now we have a situation where there are some good reasons to find a way to start enforcing this in appropriate cases, again, to save lives. So what we've done is, first of all, so this is an amendment. One of the key things I want everyone to understand is this will not apply indoors anywhere. All right, so this mask ordinance, as we propose amending it, only applies outdoors. The ban would be only outdoors. Now, okay, so all the situations that could arise outdoors, what other exemptions are there that we've inserted? I want to go through, and when I say exemption, I mean if you fall into an exempt category, it doesn't apply to you and there wouldn't be any enforcement. So the existing ordinance had an age minimum. We are suggesting that age minimum be changed to 14 years of age. So if you're under 14, you can't be subject to the ordinance. It doesn't apply to you. It would start to apply at 14 years of age. There's also an age maximum. So if you're 60 years of age or older, it doesn't apply to you. And the reason for that is our research suggested that when, with respect to COVID, fatalities from COVID infections really start to go up a lot at about age 60 in relation to other age groups, and they keep going up until when you're in your 80s, it's a huge multiple of the regular risk. So, but we thought that 60 was a good cutoff to preserve public health there and make sure that there wouldn't be any issue. Another big exemption is that anybody else who's wearing a mask for health and safety reasons, including prevention of illness, protection of respiratory health, protection from environmental hazards, including weather, or by order of a public authority. So the big one we talk about is people wearing masks for infectious disease, preventing contracting it, preventing spreading it. That's really the one that I think most people are really focused on, but there's other reasons that people wear masks. If there's a wildfire and there's smoke and particulate matter in the air, that would be a reason you might want to put on a mask. Some people have sensitivity to low-level ozone during the summer months. So there might be some other reasons why a doctor would recommend that you wear a mask, or whether you would, or where you would choose to. And if you're wearing it for those reasons, you're not violating the ordinance. Another reason is just if there's an order of a public authority. So if we have another epidemic, pandemic, and the governor issues an executive order that requires wearing of masks in certain places, then you would obviously have to comply with that. And you would not be in violation of the ordinance. Another good reason, we've had some questions saying, are you going to prevent people from wearing Halloween masks? The answer is no. Anyone who is wearing a mask due to participation in a celebratory, holiday, recreational, or cultural event, including parades, festivals, theatrical productions, sporting events, where masks are customarily worn, would not be subject to this ordinance. It would not apply to them. So you could imagine, pride parades. You could imagine Halloween celebrations. Obviously, if people are in a theatrical production where they're wearing a mask, Phantom of the Opera, stuff like that. And some people wear masks at sporting events, some fans. That's not going to trigger the ordinance. There was an existing exemption for if you have to wear a mask for your job. So we're not changing that. So if you're a welder and you have to wear a mask and you're outside, you'd be allowed to do that. Again, indoors, it never applies. If you're wearing a gas mask in a drill or exercise, you're exempt. That's already in the ordinance. And the last one that's really important is any wearing of a mask that's protected by the United States Constitution would be allowed under the ordinance. The existing ordinance did not specify anything. It just said when protected by the Constitution. We went ahead and added free exercise of religion because we know that we're in our community, there are people that cover most of their face for religious reasons. And so that again would not trigger the ordinance. And finally, there's a directive in the ordinance that peace officers will be looking at the totality of the circumstances. So they're not going to stop someone just for mask only. There's going to be some other reason why they stop them. And so that's another kind of guardrail that's in there to assist law enforcement and in understanding when to move forward with enforcement. So that's pretty much the basics of it. And we look forward to getting a lot more input before this is actually filed. And we appreciate Councilwoman Hawkins for setting up this opportunity to get some feedback from the community.
Thanks. I want to recognize we were joined by committee member Scott Reed, and we were joined by Councilman Philip Baker. Also, I want to be clear, this is a proposed amendment, okay? Which means that all these are suggestions, okay? I also want to add something that was not spoken of, and that is the Pooh Shiesty mask. Those masks, the Ninja mask, I see some of those youth over there looking like, yeah, we know exactly what those are. The ski mask, the surgical mask used to hide identity, not due to any health issues or things like that. So I want to make that very clear what this is geared towards. You know, we want to know why a lot of these homicides are not being solved. Well, how can we put pressure on detectives to solve these crimes when identity are being hidden? We purchase Ring cameras. We spend thousands of taxpayers' dollars on equipment to identify suspects. At this point, we don't have no other way. And if you guys have any other suggestions or anything, that's what this is for. We need to hear from you all. So moving forward, I wanted to say that. Welcome to the public safety hearing. And there are a few house rules. As a representative of the community, residents, we are interested in what you have to say about the issues before us. Your opinions will be better informed us on the issues and ensure that all the facts, the matter have been considered. If you wish to speak tonight, you must have signed up with the clerk in the back of the room. Speakers will be called in the order in which they are signed up. Speakers will be given 3 minutes to state their opinions. This hearing is taped for those members of the council who could not attend, so please speak slowly and clearly. When you are called to speak, step up to the microphone, state your name, and begin. Council members generally would not respond or answer questions during the hearing, but your comments will be considered while we work to amend the mask ordinance and provide public safety throughout the community. Any abruptions, any disrespect, you will be asked to leave. And if not, I will ask one of my colleagues to make a motion. No, not to, it's okay. To make a motion to dismiss, okay? So I'm sure that that won't happen, but I had to state that for the record. Okay. Clerk, can you call the first speaker?
Danielle Phillips.
Danielle Phillips. 131 murders. My brother was one of them in Newburgh Park, May 16, 2024. Today I stand before you with a heavy heart, not just a member of this community, but as someone who has felt the sting and loss firsthand. Just months ago, my brother became another face of loved ones taken too soon by gun violence. He was taken from us on a sunny day in broad daylight. He wasn't just another statistic, a sad story of many. He was a son, he was a friend of this community, Newburgh, and he was my brother, and he was loved. And many of the Newburgh community loved him. We've seen budgets come and go, well-intended programs that may look good on paper, but don't touch the root of the problem. They are unrealistic, and our community doesn't need just a Band-Aid solution. We need healing, empowerment, and real opportunities to end this cycle of violence. I urge the council to see this budget as a commitment, not just a line item. We must invest in programs that bring us together, that foster genuine relationships, create economic opportunities, and provide real, when I say real, mental health support. Gun violence in Newburgh isn't just an issue for us, it impacts us all. Let us honor the lives we've lost, choosing solutions that work, solutions that save lives and help our communities thrive. Thank you, council members, for addressing this issue today, but I challenge you to go beyond the allocated $2 million budget. I'm asking you to join us in creating the future of Newburgh that is safe, hopeful, and free from the grip of gun violence. We need our communities to work directly with us, the residents, the community leaders, and the families who lives reality every day. We need to ensure the funding goes to programs that truly make a difference, not just a temporary fix. Let's establish community-led oversights that keep us accountable to each other and ensure this budget fulfills its purpose. Let's commit to evaluating the impact of these programs and refining them until they work. And let's make space for the voices of those who know this issue best, the young people, the families, and the survivors. I call on each of you here today to be a part of this challenge, to work with us side by side to reclaim our communities and to say enough is enough. Together, let's make Newburgh a safe haven where every child can grow up with hope without fear. Takeo Thomas, May 16, 2024, 131 murders.
Thank you.
Jeff Cavalcanti.
We're going forward in a new direction, but first we need to reach back 41 years and dust off our mask ordinance. It will be a tool in the toolbox of our intelligence-driven constitutional police. Let's talk intelligence, data. In the 41 years, how many arrests and convictions have there been? Was the ordinance effective in making the KKK cease their activities in the city? I need to know, where is the empirical intelligence that says crime is increasing because of masks, or the violent crime is going to go down because you can't wear a mask? The only time I have seen a mask ordinance being used recently was when citizens were protesting Israeli aggression on college campuses. How about devices that mask identity? Will there be a ban on sunglasses, big floppy derby hats? Last Thursday night at 6 p.m., the administration kindly scheduled a panel discussion on the history of policing at the California Community Center. Chief Humphrey was there. He said a lot of things. One was that any discretionary tool that police have has a risk of abuse. He also stated the mask ordinance means nothing either way. I urge you to listen to the live stream of that meeting. The idea bannered now is proper training will allow an officer to take in the totality of the situation. The failure of the training in the Scotty Scheffler arrest caused our judicial system to compromise this process so the golfer could get back to his tee time. How about the officer who recently came up missing $4,000 of a citizen's money during an encounter? You know, that was the first reform promised after Breonna was killed. 2 cops, body cameras on when handling money. The dust hasn't settled yet on the corruption and misconduct of LMPD leadership, who chewed up and spit out our last chief. The entire leadership team had to be revamped, including the head of training. Here's some intelligence data. The Hildyard Hines report, the history of policing study, and the investigation and report by the DOJ all point to one thing. LMPD is not up to the standards of being able to look at the totality of a situation and make a proper judgment. What guarantees this tool won't be a tool to stop a racially disproportionate segment of our citizens? Chief Humphrey says there is none. This law will not help rebuild the trust needed to go forward. It will penalize those who need or want the comfort of wearing a mask in public. It will increase the already high amount of settlements this city has to pay. It will only be a stop and frisk law masquerading as a new direction. Don't blow smoke when honesty, integrity, and transparency are needed. Thank you.
Mike Craven.
We've also been joined by Chief Nicole George.
Mike Craven.
My name's Mike Craven. I'm running for Congress here in the 3rd District. Humphrey, I want to meet you later. I heard a lot about you. I think you're doing an excellent job. I know you're under a lot of pressure. Don't worry, you go get the job done. I want to thank Barbara Strickland for asking me to come here. 55 years ago, some of you remember this, baby boomers, we went through quite some time with the riots of 68, 69. They tore our city up, and we did one thing that we did before. It's called walking the blocks. You know, watching blocks is one thing, but walking the block is another. Now, I'm running for this office. I give you my word that I will walk the blocks. Each block, I will walk once a
Excuse
month.
me, you cannot campaign in here.
Oh, okay.
Okay, all right.
Good enough. And so anyway, what I'll do is I will help bring the crime down by walking the block. And also I will help bring the crime down. I can't campaign so on. But I will also help bring it with more police officers. We need at least 150 more police officers. No, I'm not campaigning. No. I'm telling what I'm. Okay. Okay, good enough. Well, anyway, I want to thank you. I didn't know that.
Okay, sir, you need to go ahead and wrap it up.
Yeah.
There's no campaigning in here?
Okay.
All right.
Thank you. God
Or
bless.
else I'm gonna have to stop you. All right, thank you. Next.
Sherry Thompson.
So what I have prepared, Sherry Thompson's been in Louisville since 2009 as a citizen resident. What I have prepared was without the knowledge of this proposed changes and exemptions to the ordinance, so I'm just going to go through my list. Over 11% of the citizens that live in Jefferson County, Louisville Metro, have asthma. That's more than 1 out of 10. That's a lot. And a lot of those people are in the West End. A lot of us have COPD. A lot of us have bad allergies. We live in the Ohio Valley where there's just crud all the time. Reasons I wear a mask outside. I ride a bicycle, I walk, I hike. We have very bad air quality on some days. I have to wear a mask or I have to stay inside. My pulmonary specialist told me that cycling is the best exercise for my lungs. So that's what I do. I try to ride my bike every day. I don't ride long, but I try to ride 3 to 4 miles at least. I walk my dogs a mile every day. A lot of people have compromised immune systems. My sister died of metastatic breast cancer almost 2 years ago. She was under chemo and radiation, and Louisville has a large treatment center throughout the city for people with cancers. A lot of people are immunocompromised. As a cyclist, and a lot of cyclists and athletes that I know that get outside, we wear masks, we wear neck gaiters, we wear balaclavas that look sort of like your ninja thing in the wintertime especially, to keep the air warm and keep the pollutants out as best we can. So we can keep moving and keep having exercise. Those people aren't relegated to 14 and under and 60 and over. There are people within the other age group also. And I just want to say, this sounds like one more level of adding a punishment to people, and it's not going to prevent crime. Adding masks, a mask ban, I don't see where that's going to affect the criminals, because criminals are going to break the law no matter what. That's my speech. That's all I got to say. Thank you for listening.
Nicole Hayden.
Good afternoon, Council. Nicole Hayden. I come here with a couple of questions as I sit and I hear what you guys are trying to propose, and I understand basically it's not really about the medical mask, it's about the Pusheisty mask, and a lot of these Pusheisty masks that are being worn by youth. I come today asking you, how do you plan on educating the youth? How you plan on hearing the youth voices? These masks were also worn in the beginning as a fashion statement. Nike sells them, they're sold online, they're sold in the stores, they're sold everywhere. So my question and my call to action for you guys is, how do we plan on involving youth so that it won't be a punishment? When we talk about the age of 15 or 14 years old, how are you going to be able to see who's 14 or 15 when they don't carry IDs around? So is the police going to constantly stop our youth? Are they going to target our youth? How are they going to determine who's of age? So my ask of you is to make sure that you're including youth voices in this ordinance. Make sure that you are asking them, and how you plan to educate them? Are you going to partner with organizations in the community to help educate the youth on what's going on? Are you going to give it a time limit? Is there a marketing plan together that's going to be, 6 months before you guys even enforce this? So please take into consideration the youth, because when we talk about this age, you just gave a statistic, I think 15 to 19 years old. These are the kids who are wearing these masks. They wear them they can't wear them inside of here, but they wear them outside every day. So how are we going to make sure their voices are heard, but also how are we going to educate them as well? Thank you.
Nat Reed.
Hello, my name is Nat and I'm a Louisville resident. I want to start by reminding this committee about Elijah McClain. His name was spoken on American streets in 2020, just like Breonna Taylor's name was. In August 2019, Aurora police stopped and detained Elijah McClain after someone reported him as sketchy for walking home at night wearing a ski mask while he was listening to music. A 23-year-old Black man, Elijah, was anemic and wore his ski mask to keep his face warm. Aurora did not have a mask ban, and Elijah had a health reason for masking, but that didn't stop him from being profiled and ultimately killed by first responders. 1 in 3 people killed by the police are disabled. And research has found that Black people are more likely to wear a mask than white people and experience more health inequities. People should not be subject to more surveillance because they are masking while having a marginalized identity. And I don't believe that this can be implemented in a way that's not ableist or racist. In general, the practical application of this law doesn't even make sense. There are already laws against harming people. Why would someone who wants to cause harm care about a mask ordinance? Additionally, this ban emboldens businesses to deny services and legitimizes mask bans in other areas of daily living. In fact, we've already seen instances locally where Black folks have been told to take off their surgical masks to shop. One business even referenced the mask ban ordinance. And on top of that, Public Safety Committee Vice Chair Dan Syme is working to provide no masks allowed signs to private businesses. This is not okay and encourages discrimination against protected classes. It also emboldens vigilantes who have assaulted mask wearers in other places where these bans have been considered. I also oppose this mask ban because COVID and other airborne diseases remain prevalent. Even with exemptions, any ban that further stigmatizes or discourages people from masking in public threatens the health and well-being of our community. Wearing a mask can help prevent death, disability, and illness. Banning or restricting them puts the most marginalized further into harm's way. I urge the Public Safety Committee to oppose any legislation that criminalizes masking and to work to repeal the current mask ordinance altogether. Thank you.
M. Strong.
Hi, I'm Em Strong, and I oppose the mask ban even with proposed amendments. This policy fails to measure up to the knowledge we've gained about public safety and public health over the past 5 years. Since 2020, we've learned what many Asian cultures have known for decades, that when our community wears high filtration, well-fitting masks in public over our nose and mouth, we can reduce the spread of airborne illness and prevent subsequent disability and death for people of all ages. We've learned that COVID moves through the air like smoke, that it can spread outdoors, and that 1 in every 10 COVID infections results in long COVID or new post-COVID health conditions. We've also learned that we can participate in public life like this with other people without always seeing someone's full face. However, wearing masks in the US became quickly politicized, and COVID deniers began stigmatizing those who wore and continue to wear them. Now, instead of our leaders promoting masking to prevent long COVID, we have think tanks pitching mask bans across the country, criminalizing those who wear face coverings for a variety of reasons, most of them targeting protesters who have the right to protest without invasions of privacy, surveillance, threats, or retaliation. Since 2020, we've also learned that LMPD and Louisville Metro have not been held accountable for patterns and practices of civil rights violations and harm to our communities. The same communities most harmed by enforcement of a public mask ban with or without exemptions. The city's years into negotiating a consent decree with the DOJ, and we think this is the time to revive an old ordinance with the promises that totality of circumstances won't be rooted in bias and lead to further violation of our rights. I don't buy it, and most of the public doesn't either. The young Black man recently charged under the ban was wearing a face covering with his eyes, nose, and mouth visible. That wasn't concealing his identity. We need more systemic solutions. Stop stigmatizing masking by inviting suspicion about why someone is wearing a KN95 mask or a balaclava. It reminds me of the laws that ban sagging pants. What's next? Sunglasses? We don't want people to police what we wear, and we want you to focus on systems. Anybody is capable of causing harm with or without a mask. And in fact, wearing a mask keeps us safer in public spaces from illness and disability. A bad policy without data doesn't need to be compromised with. Instead, fund groups like Armed and Educated that do community safety work with youth around firearms and conflict management. Expand programs like YA Lift that provide safety and stability to young people. The safest communities are those with the most resources. This does nothing to direct new resources to the community to address root causes. No amount of policing prisons and surveillance tech can solve that, but they can expand mass incarceration and misidentification of people of color using bias technology. Oppose and repeal the ban. Thank you.
Vic Young.
Hello, everyone. I'm a constituent of this district, and I believe that amendments are not a solution to the mask ban ordinance. Amendments are an attempt to appease the public, and personally, I am not appeased. The very need for exemptions is proof that there are inherent complications with this mask ban. Exemptions acknowledge that there are risks associated with the enforcement of this mask ban. I do not accept those risks. Mask ban ordinance needs to be repealed, not amended. A mask ban will result in public health complications, but the risk of airborne infection is already too high. Demanding folks to pull down their mask for identification will break the protective seal of their mask. Enforcing folks to pull down their mask could expose them to pathogens or pollutants in the air within seconds, even outdoors. Exposing multiple people to airborne pathogens is violence, not anti-violence. A mask ban will result in personal health complications, but the risk of ableism is already too high. Demanding folks to identify their reasons for masking will violate their medical confidentiality. Enforcing folks to reveal if they are disabled or ill could lead to further discrimination from professionals or peers. Exposing individuals to discriminatory practices is violence, not anti-violence. A mask ban will result in racialized complications, but the risk of anti-Blackness is already too high. Demanding the community to trust authorities who unlawfully discriminate against Black people is dangerous. Enforcing folks to comply with unlawful stops, searches, detains, and arrests is a civil rights violation. Exposing people to racial profiling is violence, not anti-violence. A mask ban will result in public safety complications, but the risk of violence is already too high. Demanding people to justify why they are wearing what they are wearing invalidates their autonomy. Enforcing a mask ban that wasn't even utilized to deter the Klan rallies as historically intended is hypocrisy. Exposing the public to criminalization in response to gun violence will perpetuate more violence, not public safety. I am not willing to risk public health, personal health, Black lives, or my autonomy as a result of this ban. Ordinance 13001 needs to be repealed. That's my time.
Olivia Cole.
Hello. I'm less prepared than other folks that came, and I thought I knew what I was going to say, but it seems like a lot of people have said it better than I could. And I also hadn't seen this yet. So as I was going through and reading this, I circled words like training on best practices, enforcing this ordinance fairly and equitably, reasonable. These aren't words that I associate with the police. These aren't words that I trust the police to use. Again, other people said that better than I could, but best practices and training are not things that the LMPD is known for. So I just wanted to kind of address a couple of the exemptions. You know, the idea of this not being enforced indoors, well, police may not, or they may, but as another person said, business owners will. We're emboldening, by passing this, we would be emboldening people who will and already do profile Black and brown customers. And this would just make that worse. And they would, you know, have a green light to do that. The whole 14 years of age thing, come on. Studies show that Black and brown children are perceived as older than their actual age. This will, again, contribute to more harassment against children that already exists. The idea of not wanting to inhibit people from accessing public health, that's exactly what this is doing. You're making it so that certain communities who are already more likely to face police harassment will be then afraid to protect their health. You know, you said gun violence disproportionately affects Black folks, which it does, but guess what else disproportionately affects Black folks? COVID. So this is exposing people to further harm. The exemption for people wearing face masks for their job, saying, oh, if you're wearing your job, you know, for your job, we won't bother you, but we know that's not true. How many times have there been cases where somebody was just doing their job and they were, you know, cited for looking suspicious? They're just walking or delivering a mail or just going about their business. It happens all the time. I have students who sit in my class that wear masks, who wear shiesties, including the shiesties. They sit in my class and they learn poetry. They're not there to rob anybody. They're not killing anybody. They're not criminals. They're just kids. And kids sometimes wear things that we wish they wouldn't. We still blame girls for sexual violence based on miniskirts. We can't solve social problems by harassing children. Finally, I'll echo what the chief said, honestly. You said that there's, you know, all these reasons that gun violence occurs. And so what are we gonna do about those? You know, you said that 4 years, it's been 4 years, you know, of just increasing murders every year. You say, oh, there's long-term solutions that need to be put in place. So when are we gonna do that? When are we gonna do that? Because 4 years, I feel like this is just it just never ends. So let's do something about that. Thanks.
Susan Bornstein.
Hi, thank you. My name is Susan Bornstein, and I'm a physician. I do want to acknowledge the violence that is occurring in the community and agree with Dr. Murthy that it is a public health crisis and that something needs to be done about it. I'm not sure that a full mask ban is something that will solve that problem. I do appreciate the amendments to this proposed, not a law, ordinance. Thank you, thank you. But I'm concerned about how you're going to enforce them. I mean, are you going to walk up to anybody wearing a mask on the street and ask them to divulge their medical history? Will they have to carry a card to prove that they actually have asthma and therefore it's justified for them to wear the mask? I'm just not clear on how you can, I appreciate the competing priorities, but I'm just not sure that the exceptions are going to do what you want them to do and that they will be practicable under the circumstances of everyday life. So I think perhaps we need to think about this a little bit harder and figure out if this is really the right path to go down. Thank you.
Bridget Albert.
Hi, my name is Bridget Albert. Can you hear me okay? Excellent. We've heard from our chief of police about the health issues for proposing this mask ban due to criminal activity. I'm here to speak to them from a perspective of COVID-19 protection. In enacting this ordinance, Louisville will potentially put community members in danger by discouraging our most vulnerable members from masking. No one should be forced to disclose why they're wearing a mask, yet that is exactly what this ordinance will allow members of the LMPD to do. And the disproportionate effects of this mask ban are going to fall on the backs of our most at-risk communities. This mask ban disproportionately will affect our Black communities, our Indigenous communities, our Latinx communities, people of color, our disabled communities, the elderly, and anyone whom the LMPD wishes to enforce this ban. Instead of uniting to beat this rapidly mutating virus that also unceasingly takes lives and disables even the young and healthy, some people are misusing their power to try to ban masks. I understand the argument politicians and law enforcement officials claim that masks conceal the identities of criminals, but masking also reflects caring for community safety and are a critical mitigation tool for infection control. The sad reality is no one is exempt from the possibility of contracting long COVID. This is a mass disabling event that is occurring every single day right here in our city too. As an airborne disease, every instance someone is potentially forced to unmask puts them at greater risk of contracting long COVID. And forcing people to disclose their disabilities and reasons for masking is disability injustice, it's discrimination, and it violates our human rights to protect ourselves. Ever since COVID protections ended, wearing a mask is one of the few tools we have left to protect public health, and is one of the only protections remaining to prevent COVID-19 spread. And I get that allegedly you're not trying to hinder people from doing so, but if you ever once donned a mask in the early points of this pandemic, and you don't now, remember the security you felt being able to enter the public sphere again with that mask on. This ordinance will also hinder that safety for the communities locally that are continuing to mask for health reasons. And please, I would love to hear how you will balance this public safety issue of discouraging masking and what it does to actually stop crimes from being committed by people who choose to wear masks. What I hear is the potential for police profiling, forced disclosure of disability or health issues, and overreaching by local government. Thank you.
Jared Randall. Jared Randall.
How y'all doing? Just an example. I knew a kid that was in high school, and he wore a mask because he had a grandma living with him, and she was immune compromised. So just even if you put an age limit on it, there's reasons for these kids wearing masks, and it's not just to conceal their identity from the police. I think this whole mask thing, ban idea is a PR stunt, just like the stuff with the bars. Now they're shutting all the bars down in Louisville, putting them out of business. They're blaming the bars. If there's somebody gets shot anywhere close to a bar, they blame the bar. Fine it for loud music. Now they're blaming mask. You want people to get to work and a job, And we just defunded TARC, 22 buses, 19 on a Saturday schedule. So don't you think that's going to add poverty to the community? Less kids doing sports. A parent posted yesterday that PRP in Butler, one of the buses going out there is going to be discontinued early next year. So don't you think that's going to hurt kids doing after school sports and activities? Just real quick. This is all the cities that have midnight basketball and Scared Stiff that they won't fund here in Louisville, Kentucky, Oakland, Sacramento, Atlanta, Nashville, Austin, Houston, San Antonio, Fort Worth, Philly. They won't do that in Louisville for whatever reason. These are all the neighborhoods. In a 2017 study, I'm sure it's nosedived since then. Russell, 47% of that neighborhood don't have a car. And we're defunding TARC even more. So you're going to have more poverty, less kids in after-school sports. I'm sure if you don't know, JCPS for most high schools and middle schools doesn't provide transportation home. And a lot of kids have working parents, uninvolved parents, single parents. And if you want them on that football team, basketball team, track team, cross-country team, then they need to get home, and they're going to need TARC to do that. So you need to fund TARC. And also, I think it's profiling, this mask ban. I mean, right now I got a tie on. Would y'all consider me somebody you want to search? Would y'all search me now? Because I look young. Just saying, it's profiling, and it's going to go wrong, and the city of Louisville gets sued. Thank you.
Casa Heron. Casa Heron.
Hi, good evening. Casa Heron. I want to thank you all for hosting this meeting, and I do believe that everyone sitting here and our mayor are serious about attacking gun violence, but this isn't it. It's a knee-jerk reaction to an unfortunate situation, the shooting that happened after the football game. And there's been a lot of energy put into this particular issue after that, a lot of taxpayers' dollars on something that I haven't heard anyone say that they asked for. The chief provided some data about why the ordinance makes sense, maybe, but didn't even mention masks. He told us who was being killed in our community. No one has said what the ordinance actually does. Does it increase sentencing after someone is found guilty? We haven't heard any stats on the crimes that people commit without mask. We don't believe that the police won't use this ordinance in a discriminatory way. So if it's not being used in a stop and frisk kind of way, and it's not being used to prevent someone from committing a crime, it's not like criminals are reading ordinances and say, hey, I've got to follow this ordinance before I commit the crime. Someone else has mentioned, if not a mask, what about a wig and sunglasses and hats? The community isn't asking for this. What we have asked for is a seat at the table during the consent decree. And we have not heard our mayor nor our Metro Council people say how the public has a seat at the table during these negotiations. That's what I would like to have conversations about. That's something we have asked for. This ordinance does not build trust with the 71% of the victims of gun violence. I have a 17-year-old Black child who's bigger than me and Blacker than me and has more hair than I do. He does not wear a mask, but he wears hoodies all the daggone time. And he's got hair in his face all the time. I would be pissed if someone mistaken him from wearing a mask because his face is shielded. I would be in line for the $300,000 lawsuits that Metro has been paying because our police officers have committed crimes against us. What we want is better relationships with our police officers. We want them to be held accountable as much as we're holding us accountable. And if our police officers are held accountable, then the public will want to do business with you and talk to you about preventing crimes in our communities. Thank you.
Shirley Moorman.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Shirley Moorman. I'm from the Newburgh area. And I'm more puzzled about, like she said, what you haven't said, what you haven't told us. It sounds like to me that you want this mask ban so you all can build a database for facial recognition. Do you want to build a database? That's it.
Donnie Morris. Donnie Morris. Madam Chair, that concludes your speakers.
I want to thank everyone for today for coming out, voicing your concerns. I advise that you reach out to your council person, and if you don't know who that is, you can find out today before you leave. Reach out to them. We're going to take all these suggestions, take them back, and just try to see what we come up with. This is a suggestion. This is what a proposed amendment is. Your council person has to vote on this. It's great to know who your council person is. If you don't, find out before you leave from here. We also want to thank Councilwoman Shanklin for hosting us here she's in the back. And she's also had food catered for everyone. Shout out to the caterers who made that happen for us today. I want to also thank all my colleagues. I want to thank the administration. I want to thank LMPD just for showing up. That means a lot, believe it or not. When you have a council person that shows up, that means, you know, that I'm not discrediting any of my other ones, because we have a lot of council members that are not on this committee. So reach out to your council person. They are supposed to be your voice. But I just want to say thank you for the ones that showed up. Thank you so much. And with having no further business before us, we stand to adjourn. Oh. You was the last one? You want to go ahead? Okay, you can go ahead and speak real quick.
Good evening. My name is Donnie Morris, and I rise to talk to you about an initiative that my wife and I started back in 2006, and it's about crime, reporting crime, but more importantly, preventing crime. We started a program working with Chief White and Mayor Abramson that was faith-based, in an initiative getting churches involved to help folks report crime anonymously, because we know that the public is leery of calling your crime tip line because of retaliation, or you may drag them into court. So we gave the public an anonymous way call the church with a crime tip anonymously. The church would forward it on to 574 LMPD anonymously. And doing that, work with Dwight Sweeney, Dwight Mitchell and Alicia Smiley. And during that time, the crime tip line calls went up to over 9,000. Now, I've given this to the mayor over the past year 3 times. Hadn't heard anything from him. Now, it's not the do-all, be-all, but the police kept statistics, and I've got them, that it did help. So why won't we revisit this? I have no idea. I'd like to hear from some of you. I'm gonna stick around afterwards, see if you think it's worth trying again. We know it works because the police kept statistics. We know it helped. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. That's it. Okay. We're adjourned.